Welcome to Playful Beginnings, a podcast about the magic of play therapy for therapists, students, and anyone interested. In our podcast, we'll explore the deeper understanding of play therapy and the skills we use when working with children.
We hope to help you understand the why behind what we do and how it helps kids heal and grow. I'm Dr. Kristie Opiola, a working play therapist and university professor in North Carolina.
I'm Dr. Maggie Parker, a play therapist and professor in DC. Hi, Kristie.
Hey, Maggie.
How are you?
I am good. I'm really excited for today.
Yes, our new chapter that we talked about last week. I think this will be really exciting. I think it's
Yeah, and I think sometimes when we get in practice, right, not that we forget our roots, but we can get so enticed by the big skills or these other things that the foundational stuff kind of can be put on the back burner. I don't know if that's the right term, but I think it's really important to go back to our foundations and talk about our foundations, why we do them, what's the intention of them, what does this look like in our clinical practice. So I'm really excited for today.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about reflective responding, which is kind of an umbrella term for three different skills. And so tracking, I think, which is the first thing that I usually teach in my courses, and then reflecting content and reflecting feelings.
Yep.
I usually scaffold those when I'm teaching, right? So we do tracking first and then reflecting content and then reflecting feeling. I think sometimes the reflecting feeling can feel funny.
I also want to say that as Maggie was talking, right, when we think about why do we use reflective responding in child-centered play therapy, there's a variety of reasons for us utilizing reflective responding. And I think it's about helping kids feel genuinely listened to and that they're cared about, right? And that there's empathy for their internal experiences. That's a big one for me when I look at reflective responding, not just feeling, but just who they are as human beings on this space, in this world. It also builds trust and safety for the child within our therapeutic alliance. So they're not out there alone. And it builds a stronger therapeutic alliance when they feel heard and understood and that we can experience their internal world. It also affirms emotions that sometimes don't get affirmed in other locations or with other people, as well as their experiences. And I can't tell you how often I listen to adults deny kids their experience. That's not what happened. That's not, you shouldn't feel that way. And from their perspective, that's what happens. So within CCPT, they start to learn that their perspective can also be right, that it's not always corrected by an adult. And not that that happens for every kid, but it does happen for some kids. So it helps them gain insight or self-awareness for themselves. And then it also supports their autonomy.
Yeah.
So they get to see themselves as capable and that their meaning making of the world is trusted and validated. Yes. And I think that's a really important quality. So that support that we can give them is really detrimental for their long-term well-being and health.
Yeah, I think that's when you like right before you said trust, that's what popped into my head too, is that we trust them and we are responding in ways to show that we trust them. And I think a lot of times my students are very worried that we get it wrong. And that can happen with reflecting content too, or tracking, right? You may think that they're doing one thing, but they're actually doing something else. And I think that's why we so often use that and this and there as opposed to naming things. I think that's a really big component, is that we want them to be able to use things the way that they are choosing to use them. And so you're really trying, like cognitively, you're really trying not to put words in their mouth that aren't there, whether that be by labeling an object or trying to really encapsulate what it is that they're saying to you as you reflect that content back. Because you're trying to, again, you're trying to get the essence and understand what they're experiencing. And so if you are just saying remotely, like you pick that up, you're doing that, but that doesn't display those things, nor does parroting back, I like ice cream, you like ice cream, right? That doesn't help either. So
Mm-mm.
it's really about,
Like layering of a variety of skills, really matching where the kiddo is in the moment. If we're stuck on a single skill, that feels like you're in a relationship with a robot, not a human.
yes.
So I think it's important, or someone who is not fully engaged, and that's not our goal within child-centered play therapy. It's about coming in
Mhm.
and figuring out what you need to do so that you can really be fully engaged with
And
the
I think
client.
it's hard because there are times that I'll have students and they're like, well, I'm doing what you said, I'm tracking. And I'm like, okay, yes, in a sense you are. That's also the only thing you're doing. How is that helping build a relationship? How is that
Mhm.
demonstrating that you are in like contact with this child?
And I think that goes back to like what are our beliefs about the mechanisms of change for children, right? It's the relationship that is the mechanism of change. And as you're talking, that's what I keep hearing in my head is right. It's really understanding what our big goal intention is within child-centered play therapy. It's not a whole bunch of skills or techniques that we're using. It's this idea of how can I be with you to understand you, to convey my understanding to you, to value you, to connect in a way that doesn't have a lot of judgment so that you feel valued, heard, understood within our time together. And with that belief, I believe this will help you not only build a good therapeutic alliance between me and the client, but then also will help you gain more self-awareness and what your needs are to help kind of move forward so that you can live your most authentic
Yeah.
life. And for me, that's really when we get to the root of it is helping people become hopefully less anxious, less distressed,
More confident.
showing up, yeah, knowing what they don't like, all those good things so they don't feel that they have to alter themselves for approval or um, so other people are happy yet they're unhappy.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
talking a lot about tracking.
Yeah.
I know we've kind of thrown these words out. So let me just give you a brief what tracking.
It's responding to what the child's doing. It's like picking up on their nonverbal of what they're doing.
Mhm. So in tracking, what we're doing is we're reflecting what the child is doing without judgment or interpretation.
Mhm.
So we're conveying to them, right, that we're present, we're trying to understand their experiences by helping them have maybe greater awareness of their thinking and feeling, as well as giving them some sense of control in the space. And so when we talk about tracking, it's really that we're responding to nonverbal communication.
And I think that for beginning play therapists, tracking, that's not how we're used to speaking either, but it feels easier in some ways.
Mhm. I also think I always talk about tracking like a sportscaster. So if
Yeah.
I was sitting outside the room and you were tracking what the child was doing, I should have a pretty good play-by-play of what's happening in the play space between you and the child
Mhm.
without physically being in there, just based on how you're reflecting.
Mhm.
Uh, and so that's how I've always talked about tracking.
And it can feel really awkward at first, especially with tracking, right? Because you you can like outwarm,
Outpace,
yeah, or like overwhelm your welcome over, what am I thinking of? What's that phrase?
overstay your welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Couldn't figure it out.
No, yeah.
And people track at different rates.
Mhm.
I tend to track more than you, I
You
think.
don't know that.
Well, I've watched your tapes.
Oh, okay. Really?
Yeah. I watch your tapes and I watch my tapes, and I tend to surprise talk more. It's
I do. I can be very quiet sometimes. And I think that's really, I'm an introvert by nature. And that's like, I'm very comfortable being a wallflower. And Maggie's much more of an extrovert. So that doesn't surprise me.
yeah.
Uh, but that doesn't mean that's good or bad. I think that just shows the uniqueness of therapists in the room and how we can be utilizing the same skill set and maybe show up slightly differently.
And I think that's important because it's really easy to look at other people and what they're doing and be like, oh, that's what I have to do.
Mhm.
Or, sometimes it's like every 30 seconds or every minute or something like that. And then you're so focused on the clock that you aren't being with the child anymore. And you have to be really attuned to them to know if you're doing it too much or too little.
Yes.
And you're able to kind of pick up on those clues very quickly when you're attuned to the child. And so
Mhm.
even if I may say more than you do, I think that we're both attuned enough that we're recognizing when there needs to be more and when there needs to be less, and that there's nothing inherently wrong about us doing it differently.
No, I agree with you.
Because I'll hear that sometimes from students like, well, I heard from so and so that you shouldn't track that much. I'm
I
like,
tell my students when we're starting off, just because I think when you're starting these skills or not feeling very confident, you tend to get quiet. And so I tell them they need to track every like 20 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds, just to learn the pacing. And we've even done like a metrodome of like putting a like either a timer that because you can set a timer on your phone to figure out how much is every 15 to 20 seconds, just to get the feel of like your pacing. Because you can sit back and be really quiet, and then the child feels watched or like you're disinterested or they feel disengaged from you. And
mhm.
so I think it's really important that we do kind of keep our pacing up. And then as you get more skilled, you get to like then lean into your more natural way of being in the just in life
Yeah.
gets to kind of connect. Because anytime we learn a new skill, you have to break old habits to join, to learn new habits, and then you try to integrate the two together. And so, um,
Yes. And my son says it takes 28 days to start a new habit.
it
So
does
practice
for
for
28 solid
28
days.
days. I know.
One
We're
whole
trying to
month.
we're trying to break some habits over at our house and introduce new ones. So
Uh,
I
so,
don't
so you're learning all of the deep rooted
know.
science of habit building.
From my almost 10-year-old. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. I think it sometimes feels easier and safer to track. I think early play therapists like tracking feels safe because you see it happening.
Yep.
And you can't rely solely on that one reflective response.
But I will, yeah, I was gonna say, but it's an important
Yes.
reflective response in the sense of even as seasoned clinicians, if I get disconnected from the child for any way in the play session, right? I get distracted or and all my practices of mindfulness, my laundry list or my shopping list keeps like, don't forget to add this. So there's a disengagement that happens between the child. I lean on tracking responses to get myself re-engaged
Yes.
with the child. It provides me some structure to get back into the session to be able to convey and then build up to those maybe where we would call them, the meatier or the more what we might view as meaningful responses, even though they're all really
I
meaningful,
think, yeah,
right? But
they
there are
are
some that
meaningful.
have more of the oomph power to them. But tracking is foundational to helping the child feel a structure in the room, contained in the room, understood in the space. It starts with tracking.
And there's no like, oh, once you're like a great play therapist, you don't track. No, 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 no. This is like an important aspect that I track almost in every session, right? It's foundation. And so that's why I really try and get I think that's a tenet of child-centered is when we're tracking that we don't label toys because they could be anything. And so getting used to saying things like, oh, you decided on that. Oh, you really like this. And just trying to get in that practice of it. And then again, once they label it, then you use that and you label it. And to really try and like figure out your pacing. How does it feel if you're like, you did this, you did that, you did this, blah, 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 da, da, da. Okay, try it out. How does that feel for you? What did that, like, how did that go? Okay, let's try it a different way. Now you're like waiting a long time. What did that make you feel? Like role playing with each other, I think can help you figure out pacing too. And so I can't say exactly how much, when I review people's tapes and I'm using these skills to provide notes and feedback, it's like, okay, here you could have said this. And I try and give multiple ways in which things they could say, because I think that's important to have that. But or you might be saying too much. What are you noticing about the child? And I think those are important things to kind of, as you're entering into this space and with these skills, these are the questions that I think are helpful for you to be reflecting on outside of the space is what was that feeling like for you? What was the child's response? What are you noticing in this space as you're doing this? Were there pieces that felt uncomfortable for you? Let's explore those things, right? Because if Kristie, you were like, I want you to only track every minute, I would be like, I feel like I'm jumping out of my skin. I couldn't do it, right? But
Well,
if
it's a long time.
that's a really long time, I'm trying to be exaggerating, I guess.
Yeah. And I agree with Maggie. It's hard. I think you have to trust your intuition a little bit too. And the challenge as a new therapist is, right, you haven't built that therapeutic intuition yet. But as I'm going to call myself well seasoned, right? That there is this, because I can watch a video and be like, gosh, there's a lot of silence. Or I'm very overwhelmed. There was never a moment of silence. And so just looking, being able to evaluate both sides of that comes with a little seasoned intuition. And I
Mhm.
think that's what Maggie's saying of giving yourself a shot of like trying it lots of different ways. The challenge is what I like and what the child likes may be different.
Different.
So if I like more slow paced, like a not as frequent reflections, but then the child keeps looking at me and giving me cues that they're wondering what I'm thinking or why I'm not responding. Am I still paying attention? Different things like that. That should cue me in that I need to be speaking more frequently. And just like if I overspeak or I give no space for the child and they're feeling very watched, they're going to do things like turn their back, go into the tent, go behind the puppet theater, right? To find quiet spaces to be away from me,
Mhm.
so that they, feel like they've got a sense of freedom and autonomy in the playroom, as it's really uncomfortable for them. So I think those are the things, maybe some things you want to watch for is like, how is the child responding?
Because they're going to give you messages. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to communicate that with you.
They are. They are.
And I think and that's what's hard. It's just like all of it is so, I feel like, I'm like, are we helping? Because we can't give you an exact thing to say or do because it's so dependent on the child and the relationship.
Yeah. And
Yes.
that's like one of those foundational therapeutic skills that we put together within therapeutic responding or reflective responding within child centered play therapy.
Yeah. And I think it's different. It's responding to what the child's doing. And you're tracking what it is that they're doing within the room,
It's their
reflecting
doing. So
what
you
they're
track
doing,
their doing.
their action.
Mm-hmm.
And then reflecting feeling is you're reflecting the emotion behind what it is that they're doing.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to, neither of them necessarily have verbal aspects of them. It's just that you are picking up and responding to different aspects of what it is that they're doing.
And it's all reflective responding,
Yes, all of
right?
it.
I was trying to help differentiate, right? Like
Yes.
tracking.
Yeah.
But it becomes more of your, I think it truly leans into that way of being.
Hmm.
My students will call me on it all the time, and I don't even recognize that I'm doing or being child-centered, because I really do think it just feels authentic to me, and it is the way I interact with the world, annoyingly or not. It has become who I am holistically. And so that is one of the, if you're going to call it a downside, maybe a downside to child-centered, is that there is this component that this becomes your regular way of being with others in the world. Four-legged, two-legged, you know,
Hmm.
hooved, footed, whatever it is, right? It is truly a way you interact, and that you believe in this interaction. It's not, I don't think I'm falsely putting on or have to think hard about it. It just happens, which is why my dog is trained as a CCPT dog, and we can have full conversations, and people who aren't child-centered make fun of us, but it's all good.
People who are child centered make fun of you. It's
That's true too. Yeah. Yeah.
no, but I think, yeah, I think it is. And I think you have to practice because it does feel strange, right? I think we've demonstrated the why. And I think the how that you get there is you practice.
Hmm.
You just have to practice. And I'm trying to think about like, how do I explain this to my students when we're talking about these skills, right? It's
I
like,
tell them to practice with everyone and to designate time multiple times a week.
and so work with a friend and come up with different ways in which you could respond, different
Mhm.
things. I think when we talk about tracking, I think it is really important to remind people that you need to be attuned to the child so that you're not overwhelming them or that you are not demonstrating that you're not paying attention, because it's awkward when you feel like someone's just watching you and hovering over you.
And maybe it is with your peer, maybe it's with your roommate, maybe it's with your partner, whoever it is, maybe it's with your dog, but you practice utilizing the skills,
Yeah,
because you're not going to grow comfort with them if you don't practice them.
have to practice.
And I think it's also about reviewing, because it does feel so different of
Mhm.
just reviewing how other people, review the textbook. You really like the workbook that gives lots of examples to do practice in around the different skill sets.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Kristie.
Thanks, Maggie. It was fun. I can't wait to jump on the next one. And we hope everyone has an awesome week. And don't forget to like and subscribe below. Check out our webpage, playtherapyspace.com.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.